Hello, and welcome to Embracing the Fight. I am Erica Lamar, your digital creator and host. And if you've been with me since January of 2023, you will know that Embracing the Fight is about normalizing the conversations surrounding physical and mental health issues and concerns. Now, why is this important? Think about it. Who walks up to you and tells you the issues that they have in their life? No one really, unless they're extremely close to you. But then you might look on Facebook, you might look on Instagram, you may see in the news where this person that you've spent time with, been familiar with, is now gone. And you don't understand why. You thought this person was strong. You thought they had all these different gifts, but they decided to cut their life or someone else's life short. If we were to start having those conversations, there's a possibility that we could help heal that one person, you know, during their tough time. So we don't have to read about the tragedy that they were considering in their mind. It's all about mental, it's all about physical, it's all about our health in general. Now that I've told you about what embracing the fight is all about, have you subscribed? Have you commented and liked any of the videos? This will help me to get my message out to the world, and I would greatly appreciate it if you would do that, especially if you found the episode moving. Now that I've gotten the business of all of that out of the way, you see that I have a very beautiful woman on the screen today, and her name is Joy Burney, and this is episode 105, The Crossroads. So, Joy, how are you today?
Hi, Erica. I'm doing pretty good. A little tired, but I'm doing pretty good.
Girl, me too. So can you tell our listeners a little bit about you?
Sure. I am a recovering corporate recruiting manager. I'm gonna start saying that I'm an entrepreneur because
Okay.
I'm claiming
Yes.
that right now.
Yes.
I'm walking in that path right now. So I need to put that on and get used to wearing that I'm an entrepreneur.
Mhm.
Which sidebar, I used to always say that I could never be an entrepreneur because I just felt like I just wasn't disciplined that way. I've grown up in corporate America. So that was just, I felt like it was probably never in my wheelhouse and I could just never kind of like find something to land on. Maybe we'll talk about that a little bit later. But words speak power, right? Words speak power.
Absolutely.
And we have to be careful about the words that we say, even about ourselves,
Right.
because once we start doing that, we've heard about people saying it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. That's because what comes out of our mouth, it usually starts in our head and maybe comes from our heart. So I'm going to start wearing that I'm an entrepreneur.
Absolutely.
um I would say that I am definitely a person of faith.
Mhm.
I am a daughter. I am a sister. I am hopefully a good friend. And that's what people would say. I think that those are the things that I lead with in my life.
Okay. That's awesome. So I meet some powerful people. Y'all better believe it. So, as always, I know you guys are wondering how is it that I met the beautiful Miss Joy Burney? So, Joy, how do we meet?
So it's tied to me saying walking in that path of entrepreneurship, right?
Mhm.
So I decided in 2025, I just needed, 2024 unfortunately had just been such a horrible year for me. Um, but that I needed to make a change. I need to do something different. I need to shake it up for 2025. And if I could just briefly just talk a little bit about the entrepreneurship. So once I finally started to say, I can be an entrepreneur. I can start up my business. But what do I want to start? So many people say, well, what is it that you love to do? Or what would you do that, if you didn't have to be paid a salary, like what would you do? Well, I that the thoughts were not coming to me, and nothing seemed to really make sense that you could actually make some money to support yourself, let me say it that way.
Mhm.
um so that's why I never kind of like ventured in that way. But as we all know, technology and the opportunities of online has definitely been a disruptor and it's changed the game.
Okay.
And so, as many of us have, when we're just doom scrolling through, whatever social media account we're going through at that particular time, I happened to see this lady on IG, and I had seen her several times actually over the course of probably a year. And finally, I said, "Let me see what this lady is talking about." And of
Mhm.
course, she had like a workshop that she was offering, and so I went to her workshop, and my mind was just kind of like blown away. It was the very first time that I saw something I thought, "Oh my gosh, I could do that." Like I could do that. I could totally make a business out of this. I could do that. She just was speaking to me in that way. And
Mhm.
she gave so much information that, I felt like I could take that information and I could do something with that. But
Mhm.
what I also knew is that I just needed something a little bit more. So, long story long, I saw another IG for someone else who was talking about business structure and how to make sure that you set up your business structure properly, and how would you go about making sure that you pay your taxes correctly and everything. And so I thought, she looks like she's a very well put together woman, so let me take her course. Well, I took her course, and again, it was just such a wealth of information, and I felt like the community, there was so much energy in the community. So I thought, okay, I need to stay connected somehow. And so this person was offering a 5-day challenge. I think this is in November whenever I signed up for this. She offered a 5-day challenge that was going to start in January. And I thought, um, I have been out of work for a long time. I've been looking for a job for a long time. The job market has been awful. In particular, my field has been devastated. And what money I have right now, it has to go to support myself. It has to be bills. Had to be very strict about that.
Mhm.
But I just felt so strongly that in order for me to make a change, I was going to have to make some type of a sacrifice. So
Mhm.
I spent $97 that should have probably went to a paying a bill
Mhm.
to try to sign up for this course, because I thought, I can't make a huge investment right now, but I need to make some sort of an investment. And I felt like, even though $97 is not seemingly a lot, but it's a lot when you are struggling, when you don't have a job at the moment. So maybe I needed to do that. So anyway, um, through the 5-day challenge, this is how I met Erica. Is this community that was of wonderful people that was built. That is how I ended up meeting you, Erica.
Yes. And I'm so glad that you mentioned both of those things and both of those classes or those mentorships that you were a part of. But the whole time you were saying, that the job market was hard and you weren't able to find anything. I think that was divine intervention. I think God like finally just drew a line and said, "Hey, I'm not going to allow the corporate world to abuse you and use you anymore. I'm going to allow you to build from this point. So I'm going to make it so hard for you to get a job that you're going to have to try so hard to bet on and fight for yourself." I kept hearing that, while you were saying it. So I'm like, Lord, I hear you, because he's telling me the same thing, exact same
You know
thing.
what's you know what's really interesting about you saying that
Mhm.
is that literally this is the thought that has come to me in like the last few weeks,
Mhm.
right? It's only been because of that now that that's coming to my mind.
Mhm.
Um because I think that when you are and you're focused on this way, sometimes you can't see in your periphery, and
Right.
sometimes some of the other things kind of like bounce off the top. And
Mhm.
so I literally had a moment where I stopped and said, well, maybe this is the answer. Maybe this is why I have not been able to break. I mean, when I say
Mhm.
I have been diligently looking for a job since April of last year, and
Wow.
I have only gotten like 2 interviews, and that was only because I knew some people at those companies. Otherwise, there's been like nothing.
Mhm.
And that's quite unusual for my profession
Mhm.
to even get like, I have not been able to even get a contract. And so, in my profession as a recruiter, should be able to pick up a contract job, even if it's a contract job that's supposed to be for 60 days or what have you. It normally, it usually extends longer than that, but you should be able to do that. I have not even been able to do that. And even as I've reached out to former colleagues, many of them are either in the same boat or they are in a job, but there's no opportunities where they are, right? So it's just a bad time for my discipline. But but that's the persisting thought that continues to persist to me. And so this is another reason why I try to be another motivation, I guess I should say, to be persistent in the 5-day challenge that we were in last week. And then we were also together in like another business boot camp this week. Yep. And to really walk that path and give my God efforts to bless, because he can't bless those intentions. He can only bless the efforts. He can't bless with a skill stuck in your head. He can only bless the steps that you take. And so if I cannot work in harmony with my prayers, then how can I expect him to give me any blessings? So it's funny that you should say that, because it only has been something that I've identified in the last few weeks. Because the truth of the matter, of the real truth of the matter, Erica, is that I honestly have PTSD. I honestly have PTSD about going back into this field, even though it is a job that I loved, because being a recruiter, it has never been lost on me that the work that I do as a recruiter, it has not only the potential to affect the one person, that candidate that I'm speaking with, it can not only change their life, but it can change the lives of their family. Right. And so when you do that kind of work, that is like it fills a cup for you, right? Because whether it be you place somebody in a job that was their dream job, whether you place them in a job to help them start off their career, whether you help them place them in a job where they know they can build their skills, whatever the case may be, you know that it's impactful. And I've always wanted to be impactful, right? And so that's not an easy thing to step away from. But what I also know is that it's an industry that can beat you up, and it can use up every ounce of your energy and your strength at the same time. And all of the jobs that I've had where I've been a recruiter, I've always, there's always never been enough hands for the work. And because I have a very strong work ethic, that's always been taken advantage of too. So I'm always have been kind of overworked, right? Just drinking from a fire hose, just trying to get it done. I have a strong work ethic, and I'm going to try to get it done. I'm going to try to get it done. I'm going to try to get it done. And to the point that, and actually in 2021, I worked so hard. Not to say that I haven't worked really, really hard in other years too, because I probably have worked really, really hard, just as hard almost every year. But I worked so hard, and it was so stressful in 2021, to where I look back and I said, in 2022, I will never work like that again. I will never work like that again. I worked myself to the bone, to the point that, I can say I almost literally worked my guts out, right? And at a point, it even affected my health. So I just was like, I'm not doing that again. I refuse. I need to set boundaries, but also maintain them. Because it's one thing to set those boundaries and say what you're not going to do. It's another thing that when something encroaches upon those boundaries, to then continue to hold the line. So that's when I started to think I've got to start making an exit strategy at some point, because I refuse to. I have an example of my mother. I love her very, very much. She has a very strong work ethic. It's something that she has instilled in all of my family. But her strong work ethic turned out to be an enemy of hers.
Wow.
She worked so hard at her job, as well as raising a family of 4 children and being a wife. that it caused her to develop an autoimmune disease, a chronic autoimmune disease. It is not something that is hereditary. It is not something that runs in our family. It is something that is caused by
Sure.
unabated,
Mm-hmm.
unchecked stress.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept saying to myself, I will not, if I saw that as an example,
Mm-hmm.
why would I now do that? Because I see what the end of it is. I can follow her example of having a strong work ethic, but not to the point that is that your health is compromised, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so I kept saying to myself, you have to do something different. You have to do something different.
Mm-hmm.
So many times, Erica, so many times
Mm-hmm.
I had to check myself. And even at that, I still was going over the line
Mm-hmm.
because it had become this is what I do. This is how I operate. This is how I'm known to be. I took pride in being the utility player, the plug and play player, that Joy can do anything that you ask her to do. You know that when you give it to her, she's going to take care of it. It became a badge of honor. Well, what good is it going to do to have this badge of honor if your health is destroyed?
Right.
Destroyed. I mean, fortunately, my mother is still with us right now, but
Mm-hmm.
her life was forever changed. Her life was forever changed. My mother has always been a go getter.
Mm-hmm.
One of the things also that I really love about my mother is that she is fearless,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
But what I mean by that is she never sees something as an obstacle. She is going to find a way through it. She's going to find a way
Love it.
over it, around it, under it, whatever. She doesn't see stumbling blocks. She
Mhm.
sees stepping stones.
Wow.
And so I really love that about her. But what I also realize is um, that's the thing that was probably her downfall to a certain extent. And what I mean by that is that because of her condition,
Mm-hmm.
it has drastically limited her life.
Mm-hmm.
I never thought her having to go into retirement early, having her to go out on disability. Well, finally, she got some rest, but I never saw that being the latter, for 30 years of her life,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so while that is important for us to see, not to see summer blocks, but see stepping stones,
Mm-hmm.
um, it's also important for us to set boundaries and also to recognize our limitations too.
Okay, girl, when I say you have said so much and dropped so many gems, we're gonna take it piece by piece, bit by bit. But before we do that, why did you name this episode 105, Crossroads?
Oh, that was your initial question. Sorry, I went off on a whole other tangent.
No.
I called it Crossroads. Okay, I called it Crossroads because when I lost my job 2 years ago,
Mhm.
I found myself truly, truly, yet again in my life at a crossroads. And I had a very serious conversation with myself at that time. And I said, you continue to say that you're sick and tired of being sick and tired. You continue to say that you know that the definition of insanity is continuing to do the same thing and expecting different results.
Mhm.
You continue to see yourself at a crossroads, but yet you continue to still go down the straight path. You're not veering left or right to see what else is down there. Now is the time. Now is the time. So I feel that even though I made a significant decision 2 years ago, I'm still at that crossroad. Now that road that I turned down, it is a dirt road. It is not paved. It has gravel on there. It is dusty.
Yep.
It's windy. I don't know where it's going to end, but I am at that crossroads and I'm still taking that journey right now. So that's where I feel that I'm in my life right now. And so as we have this conversation, I'm at this crossroads where I'm definitely looking forward. But as I try not to look too much back in the rearview mirror, I am looking back for lessons learned,
Okay.
but only as a positive force for moving forward, not as a not as a force to beat myself up,
Right.
because I found that as we talked about that words are very powerful. I'm
Mm-hmm.
very much so also on the journey of managing my inner talk,
Mm-hmm.
because I think that that's very important. So many times I've found in my life that I have gone to the bad neighborhood and mugged myself. I have mugged myself, robbed myself, turned my pockets inside out, left myself with a black eye and a
Yep.
bloody nose,
Mm-hmm.
and all for for no good reason. And so I have been on a journey, definitely in the last few years, to actively manage my thoughts
Okay.
about how I speak to myself, because we all know that we speak to ourselves in a way that we would never speak to another person. We would never do that. So I'm being extremely intentional about how I speak to myself internally. I'm also very intentional and very thoughtful about how I allow others around me to speak about themselves. I will not allow people that are around me to speak about themselves in a derogatory manner.
Mm-hmm.
If even if I have to stop them in mid sentence and say, I'm not going to allow my friend to talk about themselves this way,
That's good.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because that is the energy that I'm maintaining for myself and in my space.
Okay.
So yes,
Okay.
I'm at a crossroads.
All right. So then the first thing that I heard you say that really like captured my mind, I was like, did she hear herself saying this out loud? When you said that you have friends also or former colleagues that were technical recruiters that are having a tough time in the market, and you was like, this is just a bad time for my industry. And as soon as you said that, I said, it's not a bad time. This is the perfect time for you. You said you love it. You said it out of your own mouth. You said that you were being overworked because of your work ethic and because what you're trying to bring to your client, what you're trying to help these people do, with their lives for them to find the perfect job. And then you have colleagues. So basically, you have a business. You can start your own technical recruiting business. You can be the one that leads the charge that says, this is how my business works. We're only going to work 4 days out of the week. We're going to only work so many hours a day. We're going to target the industry that's growing. There's nothing that says you got to be stuck just being a technical recruiter just for healthcare. Just because you might know the healthcare business doesn't mean that that's the only business you designed to help bring the right people to. And it doesn't mean that the recruiters that you know won't have a network where they can find other recruiters in other industries and then you all come together. You could have a technical recruiting business that hits 11 different sectors. You can have one for each one.
I'm
And
going. I'm going to only interrupt you right now
okay,
for this reason.
okay.
Again, Erica, I need for you to get out of my head. It's so funny how you're very perceptive. You're a good listener, and I think that's something that we have in common.
Mm-hmm.
Because initially, whenever I lost my job 2 years ago, because my company went through a huge, I worked for the
Mm-hmm.
largest media company in the world,
Mm-hmm.
right? My company went through an acquisition and a merger 2 years ago, and so I ended up losing my job. And at that time, I thought, well, because I have an older sister, and one of the things that she's been working on for a while that she's been talking about, and
Mm-hmm.
now she's actually putting some teeth to it,
Okay.
is government contracts. And so one of the things I thought, well, this is something I could do. I could create my own agency and blah 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 blah. So that was what my plan was to do. Once my final day happened with my job, and quite frankly, I did go through a grieving process. I went through a grieving process. I probably went through a little bit of a depression as well. And, I had to go through that process of losing my job that had nothing to do with my self-worth, had nothing to do with my job performance. It was a business decision, and also how I left, the company, then leaving behind some dear colleagues of mine. I loved working for the company that I worked for. I've never found another atmosphere and culture anyplace else. That was my intention. But I said, you know what? Because my thought that year, sorry, I'm digressing again, but I feel like this is an important part of the story is my thought, I love one of my things that I love to do is travel.
Mm-hmm.
I love to travel for, so many different reasons. And so my thought is, if I, for that next following year, I was planning on, as we had come out of the pandemic, I wanted to try to see if my company would allow me to work remotely
Mm-hmm.
for at least a month. And if they allowed me to do that, then I was going to go to another country and work there for for 30 days. That was my plan. Well, when I got laid off, I thought, well, now is the time. I got some free time and I need a break after coming through working remotely during a pandemic and working so crazy and then having to deal with going through this merger and acquisition that was very, very extremely stressful.
Mm-hmm.
I had to wait for 6 months to figure out whether or not I was going to have a job or not. Now is your time to travel. So I did. I traveled to like 11 or 12 countries in 76 days. It was an
Hey,
amazing experience, an amazing experience.
nice.
But right before I left on my trip,
Mm-hmm.
I had a friend to call me out of the blue who was a longtime friend, and he proposed to me working with him on a passion project that when I tell you it came so out of left field, it
Mm-hmm.
came so out of left field, but it was one of those things where I was like, okay, Joy, you said you're at a crossroads. These opportunities are coming to you. What are you going to do about it? Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was very different from what I had saw myself doing. It was something different from going down the path of the government contracts. Long story short, the more I started to think about that opportunity, I thought it was something that was so completely out of my wheelhouse,
Mm-hmm.
but that it was something that I should log on. But I needed to sit with it for a little bit. And then the more I started to think about what it would take in order to get this government contract off of the ground to build my own agency, I
Mm-hmm.
really had to do some introspection.
Mm-hmm.
And what I came out of the other end of that is I don't want to do that. I honestly don't want to do that.
You know
Like,
why that
if
is?
I,
You know why that is?
you tell me.
It's because you already said it out of your own mouth that you loved what you're doing, and what you love doesn't require limits. Government contracting, even though the government buys everything from everywhere all day long, you're bound by contract to do this work. When you have so much freedom going anywhere with any different group, any business, anything, you're just open to everything. But just imagine when you get a government contract, it may say something like, we need a medical doctor, we need an oncologist for this amount of time, and you spend all your time trying to put in quotes and like present different people, and they'll look at it and say, okay, no, and you get absolutely nothing for it. Nothing. But if you link up with several different companies and say, hey, I want to bring you, some quality candidates, this is my fee, they're gonna pay that fee because they don't want to do the work.
Mm.
Government's not gonna pay you until you win that contract. If you don't win the contract, you sitting here trying to scramble and grab all these folks and find all this different stuff to get it together to present. When you're out here, you'll just be presenting yourself. You'll be presenting everything that's already in you that you've been doing for the past 20 plus years, the successes that you've had, because you said it yourself. It was a business decision. It had nothing to do with your performance. So that means you got A1 performance on your side. You got A1 performers that were in the same situation that you were in, that you're now going to come back full circle and get these folks together. You don't want to, well, you can grab some government contracts, but you don't want that to be your whole, your livelihood, your business model. Because if you model your entire business around that, you're modeling it on the precept that you're going to win these contracts each time you try. And it's so competitive. For you,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to discourage you to not do it. Do it. But I'm saying
Right.
allow yourself the freedom to use those high performers that you have and yourself to go into these companies and offer them a package that they cannot refuse. Because if you look at like ZipRecruiter and LinkedIn, you'll see some of those jobs have been on there for like 8, 9 months. And it's like, what? You mean there's nobody that's interested in that? It's not that. They're getting the wrong type of people because they don't have anyone that's sifting through it. Imagine when someone is going to collect the wheat. Imagine if they just showed up with just wheat, not separated, from the tares. If they didn't separate it, it's like, what is all of this? What are we gonna do with this? This is not edible. This is not something that we can use to feed people. And you,
Yeah.
as a technical recruiter, are sifting through it all. So I wouldn't limit myself, honey. I try to get a little bit of everything. After a while, I
Well,
be,
that's definitely something that we may have to talk about later because as of right now, I feel like I still have PTSD. So I'll just have to see if that's something. It's not the direction that I'm trying to go in right now. But you're right. I mean, at this point, that's a part of me breaking down what I have been conditioned to do after decades working within corporate America, right? Corporate America means that, you're working for someone else, you're allowing someone else to get the work and that you do the work. And so being an entrepreneur means that you're going to eat what you kill, basically, right?
right.
So it's a mind shift and it's just going to take time. It's just like me continuing to be mindful of how I refer to myself and the language that I use. That's just a part of it, right? So it's about that. It's about this hard shift that I'm going through right now, and part of that shift is making sure that I'm open to all options, and then just figuring out what's going to work for me. So you're right. But see, Erica, this is why me and you are linking.
Yep.
Me and you are linking. Me and you are linking. So
Absolutely.
that's the beauty of, if there's nothing else that I've gotten out of these business courses, which I've gotten definitely lots of helpful and useful information.
Me too.
But to me, I keep saying, when people say what's been the main thing, I say it's the community. It's
Yep.
been the community, and it's been about meeting people like you, and I've met a couple of others. But we've made such a hard and fast connection. I'm looking forward to that continuing to build.
Absolutely. And then, something else that you said in the very beginning when you were describing what you saw growing up. You saw how hard, your mom worked. You saw the stress. You saw everything that she was going through. And then I don't know if you noticed it or not, but you modeled yourself directly after that. In the sense that you're working hard and you were pushing forward and doing everything that you could to hang on to something that wasn't necessarily what God had for you. Now, I'm not saying that, he didn't say that technical recruiting was for you, but when you're being abused or like minimized and then overloaded all at the same time, I'm sure that was the same thing that maybe your mom was going through. And God said, you know what? I've seen your mom go through it, and I see that you want to break this, so I'm going to help you break it. I'm going to separate you from this. And I'm sure that when you have this conversation with your mom, she's going to tell you the same thing, that your health and your mental health, especially, are paramount importance. Because once that job is over, you think them people gonna be calling you saying, "Hey, Joy, how you doing? Is your family fine? Do you have enough money? You got enough?" No. Corporations tend to use you up until they can't use you anymore. Because I have seen people go out on disability. There was actually a guy that went out for disability on one of my previous with one of my previous employers, and he had AFib for a whole year. They were trying to do everything they could to dispute his medical claims, his FMLA. And finally,
Mm.
once his FMLA time ran out, you know what they did? They didn't go by his house to see how he was doing. They didn't ask if he was in the hospital. They didn't say you having surgery. They said you fired. That's it. Because they had no more use for him. So as entrepreneurs, we realize that we have use for us and the people that work for us. And we want to see them healthy, happy, and whole. And because you've been on that corporate side and you've seen that you are just, an object of their affection for the moment, that this isn't what you want. This is not what you were designed for. This is why you struggled internally. This is why you got PTSD, because you knew it wasn't right. And you had this internal struggle saying, I still got to go to work. I still got to make money. I still got to do what I know how to do. And all this other
Support
stuff can
myself.
happen on the
Yeah.
side. Right. Say, because I don't want to just be, homeless or living off of anyone, because I am self-sufficient. I watched my mother fight through it, so I'm going to fight through it. And God said, no. Mm-mm. But he's not going to allow you to do that. And if your mom could sit here now and say something to you, what do you think she would say about your entrepreneurial journey now that corporate is no longer an option? Not saying that you can't take a job to make some money or whatever in between, but it's not a
Right.
long-term option. So the only thing for you is
Right.
entrepreneurship going forward. What do you think she would say?
Well, and let me also just say too, is that both of my parents um, set a very fine example about their work ethic and the sacrifices that they certainly made for my family. So I definitely want to make sure that I say that.
Oh, yeah.
And they both set a very fine example.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but what I would say is that my parents have always been so supportive of me and my brother and sisters. They've always been supportive of whatever we do.
Mm-hmm.
Now, what I will say, just being speaking truthfully, is that they're older, so they come from the old mindset of you need to have a job and you need to have a steady paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
But when I just say that they are still supportive
Mm-hmm.
because they think so highly of me and my sisters. They think that we can do basically anything. My mom knows that me having to get a job right now is because I need to support myself and I need to pay my bills.
Mm-hmm.
But she also knows that I'm also trying to find a way to break free
Mm-hmm.
from the shackles of working from someone else, right?
Absolutely.
And she is just supportive, but she's always going to say, take care of yourself. Yeah.
See,
I
that's
wanted
really
to,
nice.
if I can just touch on two things that you said.
Okay.
You had mentioned about, man, it was something that you said, but I can't remember exactly now, but what it made me think of is that I had a job at one particular point in time, and I had moved out of state,
Mm-hmm.
and I had moved out of state to be closer to my family, and I was leaving a bad job situation actually,
Mm-hmm.
and so I took this job, and I thought it was of divine origin because the salary that they offered me was the exact salary that I prayed for. It was an exact salary that I had prayed for because I was like, I need this particular amount of money
Mm-hmm.
so that I can support myself, so that I can pay my bills. And when this job finally came through, it was, I mean, when I tell you, it was like an out of body experience. Not to say that God hasn't ever, I've never felt like he has intervened in my life, because I definitely know there have been divine moments for sure. But that was so specific that it was almost scary, right?
Mm-hmm.
Well, in that situation, I had things happen to me that I have never had happen to me in a terrible sense on a job. I worked with people who were terrible.
Wow.
It was things. I'm not going to go into all the details of that, but what I'll just say, it was probably one of the worst working experiences I've ever had. It was so hard on me physically that it drained me physically.
Mm-hmm.
Mentally, I was always in distress. I'm gonna tell you that job was so bad. I had a 20-minute commute from door to door, from my door to the door of the um, of the building of my company,
Mm-hmm.
I would pray those full 20 minutes so that I could show up with a smile on my face and get my work done for the rest of the day. Right.
Mm-hmm.
I prayed, but then it got so intense to where I had to back it up.
Mm-hmm.
I started praying in the shower every morning. And I prayed from the time I got in that shower until the time I pulled into the parking lot of that job, because I knew that I needed this job. It was so bad and so distressing to me, right? But I had been trying to find other jobs and nothing was coming through.
Yep.
I will share this. There was something that I was doing spiritually, and then I realized that what was happening to me on this job was spiritual attack,
Yep.
right?
Absolutely.
Because what I was doing spiritually, the enemy was not wanting me to complete that.
Mm-mm.
So I remember distinctly, finally, I had a conversation with my father, who I really appreciate from him. Both my parents, again, set a very fine spiritual example,
Mm-hmm.
set a very fine example of having their relationship with God and having that work in their life. But I definitely respect my father for the spiritual man that he is. And so we were having a conversation, and I was just explaining to him, I said, Daddy, I feel like I don't know what to do right now, because I gotta leave this job. I literally can no longer withstand this. I cannot, I need to leave this job, but I feel like I can't leave this job because it was a blessing from God. And I don't want to seem unappreciative for this blessing that I received.
Right.
And he said, "Ooh, sorry."
Oh no, you're
It's
fine.
taking me back to that moment, because it was such a pressure field. But
Mm-hmm.
my father said to me, he said, Joy, he says, well, first of all, you need to understand about trials.
Yes.
The thing about trials is that they have a beginning
Yep.
and they have an end,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
And so that's the thing that we have to look at, is that they have an end. It
Yep.
is what you do in the midst of that trial that's what's most important. So just think of it when you're having those tough days.
Mm-hmm.
Just know that this trial is only temporary. It's not going to last forever. And then he said the thing that just freed me completely. He
Mm-hmm.
said, you have to think about it this way. This blessing that you received from Jehovah
Mm-hmm.
was maybe for you to get to where you needed to be and to take care of you for that moment. It does not mean that you have to stay in it.
Yep.
It was a blessing for that time because that's what you needed. And it's okay. Jehovah knows that you appreciated that blessing. You took the job, didn't you?
Yep.
Out of that blessing. He
Mm-hmm.
was like, so it does not make you an unappreciative child to walk away from that at this time. Instant tears.
I know.
Instant. It just I
No.
mean, the stress that I had been carrying up in
Listen.
my neck
Mm-hmm.
just drained and lifted. I needed to hear those words. And I really felt like that was, again, God speaking through my father to speak to me, to say, to relieve me of this, because I was so worried and so concerned. I did not want to seem ungrateful and unappreciative of this blessing. But I knew that I needed to, I can't withstand this any longer. I appreciate you helping me to stay afloat, but I can't take this no longer.
Mm-hmm.
And so, and let me tell you how he worked it out.
Mm-hmm.
Those last 2 weeks at that job, it
Mm-hmm.
was such a crazy job. What I'll just say is he lifted all the pressure, like literally everything that was on me in the job. He
Mm-hmm.
lifted everything from that job for those last 2 weeks. And when I tell you, on my last day,
Mm-hmm.
I literally had turned on music and danced into our morning meeting and danced out of our morning meeting,
I love it.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I was free, right? So
Yep.
that was such a lesson learned to me, again, that trials have a beginning and they have an end. They are only temporary.
Mm-hmm.
So you bear up as best as you can, certainly with the help of God, but you can get through it, right? You can get through it.
Mm-hmm.
And then two, it also taught me that a blessing can come and it may just be only for a season.
Right.
It doesn't have to be for the year long,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
So look at it, take the blessing for what it is, and then keep it moving.
Sure.
And then the second thing that I wanted to talk about when you talked about corporate life
Mm-hmm.
is that there have been so many times in my corporate career where I learned very early on in my early 20s when I first went to work for a large global corporate entity
Mm-hmm.
and got laid off. I was in my early 20s and I had never had that experience before. So I was like, wait a minute. How is it that I'm losing my job and I'm not like getting fired? I'm not getting like I just don't understand. How does this work when I've done everything that you've asked me to do and
Right.
I'm not getting fired, but getting laid off because my company went through a huge layoff where they laid off like 6,000 people across the company. My whole entire department from director down was just gone, right? I didn't understand that. And so, but it was a first lesson to me that you can be as loyal as you get to a company, but they will never be as loyal to you as you are to them. Because
Right.
again, they're going to make business decisions. They can sell you, Joy, I love you as you know, I love you. We love the work that you do, but we're sorry, we're gonna have to make this business decision. And that's happened to me a few times over the course of my career, right? But
Mm-hmm.
this is another reason why I was at a crossroads 2 years ago, is because I left that company and the manager that I had that particular time never said goodbye. They never said, now I
Okay.
wasn't asking for a thank you for your service or what have you. I didn't even get a 2 sentence email
Wow.
wishing me well.
Mm-hmm.
And so when that happened, Uh, I'm not gonna lie, it was a little bit of a gut punch because I had never experienced that before. But of course, as my father says again, he was like, if you haven't experienced something, keep living because eventually you will,
Right.
right?
That's right.
But it was another gut punch, and it was just another solidified my belief that I had all along. Again, is that when you are working for other people, they will never be as loyal to you as you are to them.
Right.
So you have to set your boundaries. That's why I say you have to be take care of your health because that job is going to be there. And
Yep.
if it's not that job, another job is going to be there. So you, like you said it, they will use you up and they will, right? So me working myself to death in 2001, and at some point I was even hospitalized because of how I was working
Mm-hmm.
and still like a crazy person like I was on a movie or a TV show where you see the workaholic who is sitting in their hospital bed, they
Yep.
got a phone on this end and they're typing on the computer. That was literally me in the hospital. That
Wow.
was literally crazy me in the hospital doing something that I would tell other people not to do, and
Right.
I was doing it myself. Literally that night,
Mhm.
as the lights went out and I was there by myself, I thought, what did you just do today? You just did something that you said that you would never do, and you tell other people not to do,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
And so I did all of that. I did all that was asked of me. I
Mm-hmm.
did everything that was asked of me, and I still lost my job. So it was another sobering moment.
Mm-hmm.
And that's again why I say that I'm at a crossroads. And that's why I also chose this title of Crossroads for this conversation, because I do feel like I'm at a crossroads. I'm taking these learnings
Mm-hmm.
and I'm trying to move forward differently. I'm trying to move differently. I'm trying to be um, mindful of this shift that's happening in my life right now
Mm-hmm.
and taking that path.
And it's interesting to me. It sounds like you have the blueprint of how to get to, through, and on the other side of the crossroad. Because
Mm,
you got there because one, you trusted God and you worked as if you were working unto God. And even when that wasn't good enough for those people, they let you go. So that's what got you at the crossroad. But once you got to the crossroad, you are still surrounded by people, like you said, your parents, how they support you, how they speak life into you, how they continue to, help you to go forward. But what's gotten you to the other side, I don't even know if you realize. what's gotten to the other side, other than your faith in God, is what you're putting back into yourself. It's the time that you've taken to say, you know what, I'm going to personally develop. I'm going to give to me. I'm going to choose me for this moment of time. Because you went on a trip. I wish I had known you then, because I'd be like, I want to go. I want to go all over the world. But I'm saying you did those
Yes.
things to reset. The only thing now is you saying, you have PTSD, but I think that you do have PTSD. All of us suffer from something that has harmed us in the past that makes us a little hesitant to go forward and to try different things. But I think
Yes.
yours is designed to recognize that in your future client and to
You
recognize
know,
in who you're going to connect them to. That's what I believe.
I used to have like one of my an executive in a company I worked for. One of the things that she said to me one time, and she says, "Well, you're a good connector. You're a good networker." I looked at her and I said, "Really?" I said, "Why would you say that?" I didn't even identify that with my about myself.
Mm-hmm.
That was what I was doing, and that's what. But isn't that great? Because that means that it's authentic,
It
and
is.
that means that's just what I do.
Mm-hmm.
That this means that's just what I do. I think that oh, it was something that you said. I should have like wrote down the we're talking about so many different things.
Yeah.
Um, what was one of the last things that you said? Because it was something I was going to say to that.
Like,
Um,
I don't know. Well, I can give you another piece further, and it makes
okay, go ahead.
when I said that, you are able to connect the right people to the right position, it's because you're connected to the plug. How else are we able to put people in a position that they love and the things that they love if we're not listening and adhering to God's word? And I feel like everything about you, everything that you have done, that you said, it's always been rooted and grounded in God. There's it's no other thing, nothing else matters. It's like, okay, when you were going through everything and you said, I want this job, I need a job to take care of me. God said, okay, here's a job. And you went there, you were diligent, you were doing everything. I didn't hear you say one time that you went in there cutting up, acting crazy, throwing the people's tables over, nothing like that. You still worked as if you were working unto God. And then when that didn't work out for you, you didn't say, you know what, God, you failed me. No, you just continue to trust, continue to believe, and say, God, what's next? Because you were empowered from everything that you've heard and seen in your lifetime that God has been and always will be. And I just feel that, that's why you're able to connect people with the things that they love. And before the company you work for, they just wanted good people. They wanted someone who was going to build their business. They didn't think about the whole individual. You think about the whole individual. And I feel like the connections you're gonna make, it's hmm, words will not be able to explain it. It's just gonna be God did it.
You tapped on a couple different things there. One is you're very true, and I'm glad that you see that God has been operating in my life, and it's a very, very important part of my life because I want people to know
Mhm,
that the person that you know, the person that you like, the
mhm,
person that even some of my friends and my family love,
mhm.
I would not be that person if it wasn't for my faith and
Amen.
if it wasn't for my accountability that I have to God. I know that. I know that for a fact. Um, I'm very mindful of my reputation.
Mhm.
In business, sometimes your reputation is all that you have. At one time I worked for Arthur Anderson,
Okay.
which some other people may not even know what Arthur Anderson was because they're now obviously now defunct. But because of a little known company, Enron,
Yep.
they took down a 90-year firm that was one of the big four accounting firms in the world that employed 80,000 employees
Mhm.
across the globe.
Mm-hmm.
They took it down because their reputation got tarnished
Yep.
because of Enron, right? There again, this happened on in my career. It was another lesson to me that reputation can be everything. It can break you, right? It can make or break you. It can allow people to give you some leeway when you have a good reputation as opposed to not.
Mm-hmm.
So in business, reputation can be everything, but I also say in my personal life, reputation can be everything. And so when people know that I try to live I'm not a perfect person, but I try to live my life by God's standards. I
Mm-hmm.
also try to think. I also don't want to bring reproach upon Him as well. So when I move and as I operate, I try to be mindful of myself as a person of faith, and that I don't want that reputation to be tarnished and have a bad reflection upon the God that I serve. But I also wanted to touch on the fact of this is what you said that also that sparked a thought when you were talking about I'm taking the time now to develop myself. I have always felt that professional and personal development is a continuous thing. We should never stop learning.
Right.
When you stop learning, then you are stagnant, right? But the thing that, and this probably seems very, very simple, but sometimes you just have to get there,
Yeah.
right? Sometimes you just have to get there. Even if it's a simple thought, you just have to get there. And the thing that I have really gotten to um, is that in order for me to take some of these leaps of faith, in order for me to go down this untrusted, unforeseen road that I'm on at this crossroad,
Mm-hmm.
not only does it just take faith in God that He's going to lead you there, however you get there, but it also is going to take development. So part of the fear that so many of us have is thinking, well, I can't do this. It's because we have never done it.
Mm-hmm.
But if we develop ourselves, if we take mentorship, if we take these workshops, if we find people
Mm-hmm.
who are doing those things and learn from them,
Yep.
then we can do that. And so some of the things that I've been wanting to do, I'm like, oh, well, I don't think that I can do that. Yes, you feel that way because that's natural because you've never done that. That doesn't mean that you can't do it. You
Right.
just now need to find the space that you need to go to in order to learn. And so that's really what the also I'm beefing up my learning journey at this moment in order for me to be able to tack on the skills and the experience and the knowledge I already have in order for me to be successful
Mm-hmm.
in these endeavors that I'm going on.
Mm-hmm.
And so, I'm I'm energized by
Yep.
some of this recent education that I've gotten in business. And
Good.
so we can get there. We just need to always be continue. We need to be forever student.
Yeah. And you know what's interesting? You are using the vernacular of the CEO and how they always say in the boot camp that we were in, sometimes people are right in the chat, oh, you talking spicy now. Yes, ma'am. You are talking spicy over
Am I
here.
am I getting a couple of fire emojis right now? Am I getting
Yes,
a couple of
it's
fire
flying.
emojis?
It's I love it.
Uh,
So I have a question. If someone were to come up to you now and tell you that they're at the crossroads of their life. Oh, I've worked somewhere for 30 years and they came in and they said the company is closing and I don't know where to go, what to do. What would you tell them to do?
I would tell them to always bet on yourself.
That's good.
Always bet on yourself.
That's
You
good.
have it within you to do whatever you can. Um, but more importantly, I would tell them the number one thing I would tell them is to step out on faith,
Mm-hmm.
right? Give God something to bless.
Mm-hmm.
He
That's
doesn't bless him. He cannot bless intentions.
my
He
God.
can he can bless efforts.
Right.
He can't bless those thoughts that stay stuck up in your head. He blesses the activity that you do. So step out on faith, bet on yourself. Um, I would tell them always advocate for yourself because nobody knows you better than yourself.
That's right.
You have to be in the driver's seat to advocate for yourself. And then I would also say, um, network, network, network.
Mhm.
and then network again.
Okay.
And if you are an introvert like myself, people don't believe me when I say that, but I'm probably an ambivert to be exact. But I am an introvert. It doesn't always come easy to me to make connections, but I know that that's important. Sometimes it's easier than other times, right?
Mhm.
Is set little goals for yourself to network.
Mhm.
And I know sometimes that word intentional is being thrown about, but I love that word
Mhm.
because what it means to me is pressure.
Mhm.
And it means pressure on yourself, and it means focus.
Mhm.
It means focus. And it means walking with a purpose. And so when you are networking with people to find your footing, you need to be intentional about that,
Mhm.
right?
Yep.
And so lastly, I would say is be kind to yourself
Yeah.
and give yourself grace because um we have so many outward external forces
Yes.
that are against us all the time, and
Mhm.
you don't need to be another one.
No.
You don't need to add to that. You don't need to dogpile on yourself.
Mhm.
So be kind to yourself, give yourself grace, um set boundaries for yourself, and just remember that you can do it.
Absolutely. And it's
You can do
interesting
it.
that you say you started off saying you were an introvert, but then I know you heard in the back of your mind, you're not an introvert, you just have introverted tendencies for
Well,
a little
this
bit
is
of
what
time. Then you said an ambivert. I was
I
like,
actually
okay.
I actually flip it around. I
Yep.
actually say
Yep.
that normally how I describe myself is I'm an introvert with extrovert tendencies, right? Like I know how to be around people and
Mhm.
I can get energy from people, but it also drains me too. And
Yeah.
I'm fine with being by myself.
Yeah.
So that's how I kind of like describe myself. So
I,
but I had to correct myself because people go by what they see, and so I just try to give a little bit more of an explanation as to what they see because they don't believe me when I say introvert. So but it is somewhat it is the foundation of me, but
mhm.
it doesn't completely describe me.
Okay. Well, I appreciate your transparency. I appreciate all the gems and everything that you've dropped. Is there anything else that you want to share with our listeners?
Um, I guess the final thing that I would just say is, and I just said it a moment ago, is that whether it be regarding your health, whether it be regarding your professional life,
Mhm.
whether it be regarding other parts of your personal life, just make sure that you're always advocating for yourself.
Yeah.
Always advocate for yourself because, again, no one knows you as well as you know yourself. So you can be your own best advocate.
Mhm.
And of course, I can't leave off because it's been so sprinkled throughout this conversation. And I felt, and as I look back over the course of this conversation, I feel like the voice of it continued to get louder and louder.
Mhm.
Is that faith is so important to what we do. So, whatever that looks like to you,
Mhm.
I think faith is so important. We need to be tethered to something in order for us to walk in our purpose.
Wow. I mean, you just dropped the mic right then. And I
And I
absolutely
want to thank you. I want to thank you so much, Erica, for being the delight that you are and the spark that has come into my life in these last few days.
thank
And
you.
thank you for this conversation as well, because it's even gotten some juices again flowing for myself.
Mhm.
And so I appreciate you for doing this and for the work that you're doing.
And that's divine too. Because how else would we have met? I live in Florida. It's like, how we're not in the same state. We don't know any of the same people. We just,
Right.
and here we might have said, oh, we randomly got on this call. Mm-mm, got appointed
Mm-mm.
that time. And
No,
here we are.
it wasn't random.
Right, right. And I'm so glad that he did connect us because I feel like
Yes.
this is gonna go into the future. We gonna get to the bank together.
That's right. I look forward to it.
Yep, and we're gonna have a whole tagline of people coming behind us because
That's right.
no one's gonna be left behind.
That's
All right.
right.
All right. Well, again, thank you so much for being such a beautiful and transparent guest. I hope all of my subscribers, all listeners, everyone out there who hears episode 105 Crossroads, if you find yourself at the crossroads, just keep rewinding this episode at the very end and listen to the gems that she dropped. Faith, that is the main one. Faith. You have to have faith. You have to be connected to the source in order to get through that crossroad and to the other side. And as always, I want to thank you for tuning in to this episode 105 Crossroads. And I want you to have an absolutely amazing day.